People just get me wrong all the time and want to start fights thinking that I'm anti-woman. And I'm like, you could not be more wrong. I am pro-woman. I am a woman. Like, I am one, right? Why am I trying to make, my life worse? Why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Welcome, extra welcome if this is your first time. Please hit like and subscribe. I always forget this one. Now I'm going to try to remember this one. Share the video. Share it places where you think it might help somebody. Maybe somebody needs to hear it. Women have really messed some stuff up. And I don't think that it was a group of women that were like, we're going to mess stuff up. I don't know if we're that smart. I think we've been some useful idiots in the past, and our ego has made it very easy to lead us that way. And we like nice things, we like sparkly things, we like fancy things, we like feeling important, we like attention, we like all these things. And I guess all humans do, to a degree, like those things, but particularly those are our favorites. And like Eve in the Garden of Eden, the serpent knew exactly what to say to her, knew exactly how to appeal to her to make her want to eat the fruit. And whether you think that's a true story, like I do, or you think it's a myth, you have to admit that's a powerful myth, and it probably means there's some or a lot of truth to it. So perhaps take it seriously. The serpent said, if you eat this fruit, you'll be like God. You'll know things. You'll know the difference of good and evil. And she was like, I'll be important. I mean, they don't really have her side of the conversation. The Bible doesn't really include that part, and maybe she didn't say much, but as a woman, I kind of know what she was thinking. Like, yeah, how come God has all that? How come he gets to be important and he gets to know these things, etc., and I don't? I want to have that too. God lied to us. He said this was bad for us. This is actually really good for us. So then she took it. And she went and she got Adam to eat it too. We know that part. I don't know if everybody knows what the serpent said to her. He didn't say, hey, this tastes really good. That's not what he said. That was not the temptation of the fruit. And it wasn't just to just be bad. It was something that was promised, or something that was used to entice her. And I think that's one of the most interesting parts of the whole story. Well, I mean, she was indignant, like, how, I can't believe this was kept from me. And I was told this was bad. It reminds me of women and careers. I can't believe men get to work, men get to go out and have a job and be important and get money. I want to do those things. How come they don't let me do those things? They did let women do those things. There were women writers, there were women doctors, there were female politicians. Like, they let them. There just weren't a lot of them, so they were like, oh, they must not let them. Does that sound familiar with nowadays whole, identity politics? Probably. Oh, there aren't any female engineers, so it must mean they don't let them in. No, girls don't like math, okay? They don't. We hate it. And you know why? Because we're not good at it. And we rather deal with people, not things. And numbers are things, evil things. So anyway, I digress. We were like, hey, these careers, we don't get to have them. I want to have them. I want to have that. I want to have independence. Now, Eve had never tasted that fruit before, right? All she knew about that fruit was what God had told her about that fruit, and that the fruit, don't eat it. And then what the serpent, aka Satan, told her about that fruit. Here's what's super important. God loved Eve, right? So I'm talking with my hands are like, outside of the camera. God loved Eve, right? So the things he's going to tell her, and the things, just the one thing at the time, still too much for a woman, haha, but women aren't funny. Anyway, God loved Eve. So the one rule he gave her and the explanation he gave her for it should suffice. She walks along, she sees some serpent who doesn't know her from Adam. Whoops. She doesn't know this serpent. I think they would have mentioned that if it was like, oh, it was her serpent friend Joe. It was just serpent, right? And serpent's like, hey, she should have been like, no, because God wouldn't have told me that. If, God, I'm going to do what God said because God loves me and I trust him. And you know how much better we would all be if she'd said that? Heck of a lot better. We'd still be living in paradise. There'd be no sickness, no anything. But she didn't. Because right away she was like, oh, he's keeping it from me. Same with the careers. Men in Western society, I'm talking about my heritage and my Western heritage. Why would I be talking about anywhere else? I just feel like I have to qualify everything now. Not that it would make a difference to somebody who wants to get on here and be a troll. But men were like, we've made it so that you can focus on the home and taking care of the babies and be protected and safe. And right? And they're like, don't, for a while it was like, don't go out alone. Also, what was another constraint placed on women? That their father would help them choose the spouse. That wasn't to control her. Neither was forbidding that fruit to control Eve. It was to protect her. Why? Because God loved her. Our men loved us. And I have to say it in the past tense. And I get it. Unlovable with the way we've behaved. Our men loved us so much that they had us safe in a society that was safe, in an ordered community, as far as like things were ordered, streets, everything. We weren't living, in huts and, uncivilized. We were doing wonderfully. And then, the 20th century came. I know femalism started before that, but with the 19th Amendment and women getting into factories, thank you, World War II, and then it being empowerment, this is all forbidden fruit. It's all forbidden fruit. And so with the original fruit in the garden, humanity fell and sin entered the world. Disease, sin, entropy, basically, is my belief. And I think this is kind of like the fruit, the sequel, right? And so this has been a long introduction to, we're going to watch a video of Jordan Peterson talking to Chris Williamson about the exorbitant amount of women who are facing being single and childless. And this has never happened in the history of the world. And yet, we're just going along. No big deal. I know some of us are like, alarmed, but other ones, they have no idea. So, without further ado, let's bring these gentlemen on. It's my favorite thing to do is to watch on YouTube. My favorite thing to do is to watch 2 or 3, I guess several more, but it's just to watch men have a conversation. It's my favorite thing. Today, in my downtime, I've been obsessed with watching Michael Malice and Lex Friedman have conversations over the years, and it's, excuse me, Lola is wanting to be on camera. Hi, I'm sorry. Is it not about you? I think, are you a star? Oh my God, typical woman. It's got to be all about her. I don't even know if you guys could see her, but she was there. All right. Okay. Let's make sure it's all the way it's supposed to be.
You see the ONS data that came out a couple of weeks ago that said for the first time ever since records began, 50.1% of women are childless by 30. So there are more women without children at 30 than there are women with children. The first time ever.
Well, so this is, somebody clipped a part of one of my podcasts, I believe it was, where I was talking about what our society does to 19-year-old women, or 18-year-old women, 19-year-old women. We just lie to them all the time. You know, the first lie is there's nothing more important than your career, more or less by definition.
There you go.
That's the first lie. The second lie is there will be nothing more important to you in your life than your career. So that's the second lie. And then the third lie is there should be nothing more important in your life than your career. So that's the third lie. And then implicit in that is the idea that children are a burden, and that the idea that women should have children is part of the oppressive patriarchy and should be resisted. And who are men to tell me what I can do with my body? And hey, fair enough. And
not fair enough. And I needed to interject because I just want to comment on that. As a woman, he's right. I all due respect, Dr. Peterson. Yes, we lie to 18 and 19-year-olds. I remember as early as 5th grade. No, wait a second. No. Sorry. No, third. Oh my gosh. 3rd grade. That would be 8 years old for me. Thinking about what I was going to be. And that was the thing that my life would be ordered around. And it never changed from there. And the other girls were the same. It was exactly the same across. And very, very sneaky to get girls thinking about that before they're really feeling maternal, having that sort of drive to, have a relationship with a man, etc. Excellent to hijack her life purpose before she can ever really, before she's in a state where she should be making that choice, or that she would be making that choice. I hope that makes sense. It's a woman brain thing. I know what I mean, but I'm not sure if I'm saying it. But yeah, they do it much earlier. I remember that. And I wanted to be a horse trainer. And I wanted to be a horse trainer, and I also wanted to be a writer. And I remember, the whole horse trainer's not really a job, so you should probably go the writing route, and they get you into that sort of corporate thinking mentality. And absolutely. And no one, and it, for my generation is, well, you can have it all. And that was it. That was all the explanation you needed. Sure, you'll have babies. I understand now, and millennials and Zoomers are just like, wait to have children, It's almost like you can't have it both at the same time. Anyway, so that's my little interjection about what it was like all the way back then. 1980 as a 3rd grader, what would I be? 1985, something like that. Yeah, 1985.
et cetera, et cetera. Now, I've worked in female-dominated occupations my entire life. For example, I worked as a daycare worker way back when, that was like 1980, something like that. And there were no men doing that, but I really liked kids, and so that was fun. And I worked for social services in Alberta.
Can't say that now.
In the child care department.
Wouldn't be allowed to.
Then I've been working as a psychologist, either training or as a psychologist since then, and that's been a female-dominated enterprise increasingly as the years went by. But even when I was first when I first entered it. So I'm in the post-female in the workplace generation firmly. I never experienced the world except as that. And so I've watched women progress through their professional careers at every level of attainment, from the lowest to the highest, and observed what happened, and relatively, I would say, bias-free, because I didn't know. And
Right.
what I've seen is that as women progress towards their late 30s.
No, again, it's not that you didn't know, Dr. Peterson. It's that you were indoctrinated just like all the rest of us, and you didn't think it would be different. You were expecting to see, these are just like guys, except different naughty bits. But you learned otherwise.
No, late 20s. There's a psychological transformation, and what happens is that they place less emphasis on their career and way more emphasis, particularly on having a child. And that really reaches a crisis point around 29 or 30 for the vast majority of women, and their attitude flips. And I've seen it flip very dramatically with many women. And I suppose the most single most convincing evidence of that, I worked with high-end lawyers in Toronto for about 10 years. I was part of an organization. We went to law firms, high-end law firms, and said, send us your most productive people, and we'll help them iron out whatever wrinkles there might still be in their life. And the advantage to them is that things will go better for them, and the advantage to you is they'll be even more productive. And there's a good management dictum, which is pay the most attention to your most productive people, because they're bringing in the bulk of your revenue disproportionately. And so I worked with men and women who were at the peak of their careers in a very difficult enterprise. And so these were women who were generally very attractive, well put together physically, pretty stable psychologically, extremely conscientious, very, very smart, and high achieving from like junior high all the way through high school,
I know the type.
University, law school, onto the top firms, rocketing up through the ranks, full partnership by the time they were 29 or 30. And all the law firms, all the women bailed out, all of them. The law firms couldn't keep them. And I was really, and I talked to the women a lot about this, because I was very interested in it, because I knew the law firms were bending themselves over backwards and tying themselves into knots trying to retain these women, because why wouldn't they? Just being greedy capitalists is enough. They don't want to lose their high performing women because they're performing at the highest level, and they couldn't keep them. The women wanted to have 9-to-5 jobs. They wanted to bind the job so they could have a life. And that was especially true once they got interested in having a child or had one. And what they really came to was a very interesting realization. So because they were highly conscientious women, they sort of did their duty and worked hard and diligently and didn't pop their head up to ask questions. They were in junior high, they got the best grades. They were in high school, they got the best grades, and so on, all the way through, right till they reached partnership. But that's sort of an apogee, right? You hit partnership in a senior law firm, it's like you're at the top of your profession. Well, then what?
Exactly. Women view work completely differently than men do. When I was in junior high, I got the best grades, and I was in, different like extracurricular things because of the accolades and attention, right? I like the positive attention and affirmation from parents, teachers. I liked that. So I continued to do the thing that got that, right? And so as you're moving up through junior high and then high school, and like be on the high school paper, be a news editor, then be like all year long as a news editor, I'm like, I got to make it so she chooses me as editor next year. Now I got to make sure that I get, into a really good school. Now I've got to make sure that, I'm on the equestrian team, and I'm like, everything was achievement oriented. And so as long as there was a next goal, then I'm continuing to work, right? But when you are in your career and you have achieved in your career, and you get to a point where there's really no more sort of levels, there's no more sort of titles that you see as goals. Like maybe they're, maybe technically, yeah, it could be a billionaire, but you're like, in reality, that's not a goal. It's no longer one of those things that I can realistically achieve. You go, why am I doing this? We don't have that. I'm going to achieve more. There are no women billionaires. And some of it's because of competency, but also it's because of that's just not how we're wired. We're just not. So we will never be working in the job market the way men do. We just don't. We don't work. Work is a means to an end for us entirely. Why are there billionaires and millionaires who keep working? Why don't they organize it where they can retire? Because they work. They like the work of it. Women just are not wired that way.
Well, so then they looked around and they thought, here I am with all these like hyper competitive men, perfectly willing to work 80 hours a week nonstop to stay at the top. What the hell are they doing? Because that's the real question.
Yeah.
What is it that characterizes this small percentage of hyper competitive men? It's not. You can assume that that's how everyone should be, but first of all, that isn't how everyone is. Or you can flip that and say,
a lot of those men want good women, and lots of them. Or, there's a male hierarchy that doesn't exist with women. We don't order ourselves that way. So there is something in it for those guys. Not all of them see it as, cost benefit. So they don't do it, but to some degree they do.
Well, there's only a small minority of human beings that are willing to do this, to work flat out 8 hours a week. I mean, they're certainly being paid for it. Let's make no mistake about that. But what about the rest of life? Well, that's what the women asked. Why am I doing this? And that's a great question. Well, for men, there's a different answer than for women. It's a really different answer.
Yeah.
And it isn't like the men are exactly thinking this through. It's more like this is an integral part of male motivation. The more successful you are as a man, the more women like you.
Yeah.
But the problem that you have now is that as women are getting better educated, with more employment, more status, more prestige, they compete themselves out of their ability to find an attractive mate.
Yep.
As women raise up through the dominance hierarchy, and this is
competence hierarchy.
Sorry.
Okay.
Who's going to tell women the equal access to opportunity that you have recently just acquired? Actually, what that's doing is it's making it more difficult for you to find a mate that you're fundamentally attracted to.
Yeah, well, it does a lot of things. I mean, it does provide women with a lot more opportunity on the economic front. It does decrease their dependency on their mate in relationship to economic security. And educating women, countries that are willing to educate women, that's the best predictor of their future economic success. So if you look at developing countries and you want to find out what about a developing country is most likely to predict the fact that they will continue to thrive economically, it's their attitude towards the education of women. And a couple more things. Women's educational status predicts their children's educational status, but men's educational status doesn't. So that's also an important multi-generational effect. I released a video.
I don't know about that. I don't know that they're saying, look, education of women, like formalized education of women, formalized education is brand new in history. Like, by the education by the government and by the state, that's brand new in history. and then educating women or accepting this sort of formalization and educating women on all the same things you would educate men are, that is brand new also. So to say that a country's level of the female being educated is related to their economic status, I just think that there might be too many things going on there. And the other thing that kind of I have a question about is, okay, so you're going to be financially better off if the women are educated. And that kind of sounds like he's saying get educated and get a job, because there's no problem being educated. That's not going to prevent you from having babies. It's getting educated and getting away from, motherhood and families. I just don't think that you can say that that's a causation. I just think that women being educated, you can be educated. Women were educated back then. They played an instrument, they read, they wrote, they knew about herbs. I mean, they understood how to heal people without a pharmacy. I don't know. I think it's just too brand new. And it could be that there's something else that correlates with women being educated that has to do with economy. And like I was saying, so we're better financially. Is it worth it? Is it worth the sacrifice? I don't know. I feel like there's more to examine there, and he might somewhere else, but I just wanted to sort of add that.
I was going to conclude that other story. I released a video, or someone released a clip of me talking about some of the things we just talked about. And it went out on YouTube Shorts, and it's got like 5 million views in a month or something like that. And the comment section is unbelievably vitriolic. Every single comment is vitriolic, and it's all from women.
Of course.
Who is this old white bastard telling us what we should do with our bodies? And I wasn't being judgmental. I was just saying exactly what I said to you, which is, well, I've watched women over the entire course of my life with, I would say, an affectionate eye. I love my sister. I love my wife. I have a daughter. I love my mother. I'm pretty happy about women, all things considered.
He doesn't want to hurt them.
I don't have an axe to grind in relationship to how they should conduct their lives. Right. I don't even know how they should conduct their lives. I've watched what happens. And I've also watched what happens to women who hit 29 or 30 and then can't conceive. And that is not a fate I would wish on anyone. It's awful. And 30% of couples fall into that. 30% of couples have difficulty conceiving. It's a lot. Wow. And the probability that you'll have difficulty conceiving increases with age. And so, c'est la vie. But it's very interesting to me to see how vitriolic those comments have been and how uniform that is, because usually on my YouTube channel in particular, 95% of the comments are positive. And this is completely the opposite of that. So you brought this up at the beginning. You said 50% of women now at 30.
50.1 are childless by 30.
Yeah. Well, that's not good. That's a sign of something profoundly wrong with the entire culture at an extremely deep level.
I don't think that women need to take it as us trying to tell women what they should or shouldn't do. But I think that it would be very fair to say that you need to be an incredibly unique woman to make it to 50 without a family and look back and think, yeah, I did this right. That's not to say that those women aren't out there. They absolutely are. I know some of them. What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full.
I don't think he knows any of them. I don't think he's lying. I just don't think those women are honest. The women in his life that say that they're fine not having a child, not having a family at 50. That'll be me in 3.5 years. And I was slow to figure it out, but I figured it out a little bit before age 40 that I'd made a terrible mistake. And, I'm not alone. And there's a lot of women coming after me that have no idea. And you could tell by Dr. Peterson's reaction with all the women that he's talked to, worked with, etc., he knows that it's going to be a crisis level that other people do not see coming. And I thought it was very interesting that he said, you know, I'm not telling them how to live. I don't even know how they should live. Yeah, I don't think he is. I think he comes from Canada, and like most Canadians, I don't know if he's still that way. I think most Canadians are pretty liberal. You know, they're pretty leftist. I mean, look what's going on over there with Trudeau and everything. So, especially socially, they don't have the Christian foundation that this country does. And so that's beside the point, but I think he really does come from a liberal thinking mindset as far as like c'est la vie, you know. I think that's how he views it. But why the women got so angry, here's the thing. If you tell me something I know isn't true, I'm like, okay. I don't get angry and upset and everything because, like, no, you know. But if you tell me something that is true that I don't like, well, not me, but, you know, that's when people get defensive. They're being defensive. And the thing is, that's so funny is they don't even see it. Like, they can't even just play cool, like, act like they don't care. Why do you have to argue? I have to get so angry. Dress up like, oh my God, that happened to me before, that stupid mini series with those bonnets that all the pro-choice think. Like that's what we're doing. I just want to say Stepford Wives, and it's not. And I know you guys are going to tell me, and 2 seconds after I stop recording this, I'll remember. But if you're ever like, oh, she's so fake. No, this is me. This is what I really believe. These are my thoughts off the cuff. But yeah, so women don't like hearing it because it's true. And I just can't wait in another 5, 10, 15 years to perhaps 20, keep on going, when all these old ladies who have no children and they're miserable, how they're going to try to pretend like they're not. Or are they going to say we were wrong? That would be very out of character. So, but yeah, crisis level. It's coming. So on that happy note, like I always do, I want to thank you for joining me and kind of analyzing this stuff with me, spending some time. If you haven't already, please hit like, subscribe, and share to wherever you think it might be valuable. And I will see you guys on the next one.